George, hello, how are you? Thank you for coming on.
Doing fantastic. How about yourself, Lindsay?
I'm good. Nice Thursday. And
Absolutely.
I'm just really excited to start this interview series. I remember back when I was in college, my favorite things was when my professors would have CEOs and founders come in and we would get to ask them questions. And one of my favorite professors always said that most important thing is to take the opportunity to ask an incredibly smart and experienced person questions when you have the opportunity to. So just so
Well, I
happy.
hope you find him because I'm not that person, but hopefully they're out there somewhere.
I think you are. I think you are. Good for today. All right. So, everybody, thank you for watching in the future. This is the first episode of Ask Lindsay, but really it is Ask George because I am just the medium for the questions. So, I did post on LinkedIn at the beginning of the week questions for people to ask about H2cryptO and also about George's experience in traditional finance and also his transition to Web3. So, George, I think if it's all right with you, we're going to start with the LinkedIn questions, and then we
Mhm.
can get into a few of the things that I had come up with for today.
Let's do it.
All right. So, first things first, George, we had a question from my LinkedIn community. It was anonymous. And the question was, what was the biggest mistake you've made in crypto?
I think that's a fairly easy one. The story goes around 2015. I was working for BlackRock in Manhattan, and a colleague of mine came up to me and he said, "What do you think about Bitcoin?" And I said, "I'll tell you exactly what I think about Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is the biggest crock of expletive that I've ever heard of in my entire life." Now, this is a family show, so I don't want to be ugly and cuss, but you can imagine what that expletive was. Now, why did I say that? I said that for several reasons. One was I was a man. I had worked on Wall Street at that point for 2 decades, plus or minus, and I knew everything about everything, and nobody's going to tell me anything I didn't know. Thank goodness, a few years later, I kept hearing more and more about crypto and blockchain, distributed ledger technology. I jumped down the rabbit hole, and I finally had this aha moment because I spent hundreds of hours studying the technology. And after I did that, again, the light bulbs went out, the thunderbolt shot out, and I said, okay, this stuff is going to change the world. And the issue was this was probably 3 odd years, plus or minus, after that really dumb comment I made in 2015. And I think by far and away, that's my biggest, for lack of better words, regret that I didn't take it more seriously early on. And I think even before 2015, I'd kind of heard about Bitcoin, but I didn't really, it didn't just strike up on my radar. So I just kind of let it go. But it was really in 2015, due to my colleague, I kept hearing more and more about it. And again, that's my biggest regret, that I didn't take it more seriously early on.
That's fair. I mean, I feel like with anything, people compare the start of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency to the start of the internet. There's a lot of, speculation, and it's hard when you've worked in traditional finance. I'm sure that, talking about Bitcoin was very cliche at the beginning. 2015, it was probably, were a lot of people talking about it? Were you surprised when this guy asked you?
I was very surprised that he asked me, because that was the whole thing. Nobody was speaking about it.
Right.
And the funny thing is, if we're really going full circle here, I would argue up until, a few months ago, nobody in the world had even heard of BlackRock in the Web3 world, right? They didn't care about that. But now all of a sudden with the ETF and them kind of giving the stamp of approval. But no, I think the TradFi community, even today, many of them look at Web3 and crypto as an anathema, and they just don't even, they disregard it. They too will learn. It's fine. It takes people a long, long time. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Lindsay, with the internet. For a lot of your listeners, it might seem like 1,000 years ago, but there's a clip going around from, I think it was 1997, when Bill Gates was being interviewed by David Letterman. And Gates was trying to explain the internet to Letterman, and Letterman was just totally ribbing him and ridiculing him and saying, this thing sounds great for a bunch of nerd geeks, but good luck to the rest of the world. And now we know the rest of the story. And I think crypto and blockchain in general is in the same paradigm as that was.
Absolutely. No, I really think I love having the opportunity to talk to you because I'm so intrigued about people transitioning from traditional finance to crypto. And you did it in a very direct way. You went, I know that one of the main points of H2crypto is to help investors that are trying to figure out how to do this. So, I mean, in a way, it's almost you're helping the people you used to work with transition in.
That's,
Yeah. All right.
that's exactly right.
So good segue for the next question. A little bit more about traditional finance. You've worked there for a long time, BlackRock, Wells Fargo. What are some of the business practices you kept as you transitioned to Web3, and what are some that you maybe left behind?
I think the biggest, again, there's so many crossovers because
Mhm.
business is business in the final analysis. And I would say for me, it was always ingrained in my head, especially when I was working for Merrill, to be client centric. Because the reality is, at the beginning of the day, the middle of the day, end of the day, without clients, you have no business whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I have always gone out of my way to try and put my client first, whether, again, whether it's TradFi or now in the Web3 world. And I think those things transcend all industries. I don't care what industry you're in, from medicine to law to logistics to whatever. The client comes first. The other thing is, I think I was always process driven, and I try to do everything I could in my daily work life to mitigate the mundane, the things that I shouldn't have to worry about, what clothes I was wearing, what I had to dress when I worked out. Everything was very disciplined and regimented. And same thing today. I wake up at the same time. I read my emails, and then I work out, and then I do the news. And so my process is very, very systematic. There's not a lot of variables because I don't want to expend the brain power again on these silly mundane things when throughout the day I have hundreds of decisions to make and all kind of calls and meetings and things to deal with. And so I think taking that from the TradFi world and coming over here, it absolutely is a seamless fit. There's zero doubt about it. I think that in the TradFi world, it's no secret that it is incredibly hyper testosterone driven,
Mhm.
super alpha, super competitive. Competition is great to a point, but it can be very, very cutthroat. And
Yeah.
so I think coming over into the Web3 world, I like the competitive aspect. But where we were talking a few minutes ago about, there's a lot of know-it-alls on Wall Street, and it's just a part of the culture. And it's very difficult for people to say either I don't know or I was wrong. For some reason, as I get older, I realize the younger version of me who knew everything about everything and would be dogmatic when challenged. This version of me, I can tell you I know nothing about anything, but I'm going to shut my mouth, listen, and learn. And I think Web3 is so dynamic and it's constantly changing. And if you have any semblance of a static nature, you're going to get left behind because it is so dynamic. And literally every single day, it's like drinking from the proverbial fire hose because new things are coming out, whether it's new protocols, new projects, new whatever. So you've got to really, really stay disciplined and on top of things. And I think that Wall Street, again, process-driven discipline has really kind of helped me assimilate into the Web3 world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Steve Jobs, I read this a long time ago, but the reason he always wore the same thing was so he didn't have to pick out an outfit. I agree. The efficiencies of your daily life, your daily tasks. I actually always like to ask founders and business professionals I met what their daily routine was like because I think it's fascinating and it's a complete reason for their success. They've streamlined their day. Do you have like a strong morning routine that you stick to?
I really do. I wake up the same time every single morning, and the first thing I do is eat breakfast, and then I come back to my office and I read all my emails. I read numerous news periodicals, and then after that, I go work out. I come shower up, and I'm right back to the desk. And I mean, literally, it's every single day. The weekends, I'm have a little bit more luxury and flexibility. But that being said, I'm in a 24/7, 365 industry,
It's
and
true.
so there's really never any time off. But again, I mean, my wife teases me I'm like a robot or a machine. And again, I just try and keep that discipline and regimen as much as I can.
Yeah, you have to. And there's no secrets, George. It's the discipline. I
Yeah,
totally understand that.
100%.
So talking about a little bit about the fire hose of news that we're dealing with every day in the industry, how do you keep yourself engaged as a leader and also keeping up with the crazy environment of change that we've talked a little bit about?
It's tough. I will tell you that I like to consider myself a sponge, and I maybe sign up for too many emails and have
Yeah.
my chief information officer yells at me every day because I probably have, I don't know, close to 100 tabs open on my computer, and I'm just constantly reading. And again, a part of that is coming from the financial services and being in front of Bloomberg all day, or speaking to colleagues all day about being very market driven, market centric. This is a little bit different because it's not just market per se. It's new protocols, new projects, new teams. Are there certain things that we can maybe partner with or affiliate with? And so I think it's very, very important, again, for anybody in this industry to not have this sedentary mindset. If you like the status quo, if you like to sit back and relax, this is probably not the best industry for you because it's so dynamic and constantly changing. And what blows my mind about it is, here we are, 15 years in, and yet most of us still feel we're at the very, very tip of the iceberg. I mean, there's so much more to come in Web3. And I think the whole key about, staying active and on top of things is reading as much as you can. And it's difficult because throughout the day, I have many, many, many phone calls, whether that's internal or external, and you have this kind of delicate juggling or balancing act. So you have to be pretty good at prioritizing what's important. Certain things you have to maybe push back till a later day or later time. But the reality is it is coming at you very, very fast and constantly changing. And, now that we have this and we're a little bit notarized in the public domain, we're constantly getting bombarded with asks and requests. And at first I was kind of silly and I was just taking everything. And what I realized very quickly is if I took everything literally from sun up to sunrise, I would be on phone calls all day long or video calls. And so you do have to be smart about prioritizing things that matter to your clients and that matter to your company.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being here today. It means a lot.
Absolutely.
And so let's talk a little bit more about H2cryptO. I'm saying that correctly, right? H2cryptO. Yeah.
You are one of the few who get it right. We thought we were so cute and clever with the name, but you actually have it right.
Really? People don't say it? That's funny.
But most people say H2O crypto. I don't know why, but it's very
Oh.
common that they do that.
All right. Well, no mistakes here. So we've got the 24/7, 365 support. That is the key differentiator. It's something that I'm getting asked all the time, and I'm no founder. I am no expert. I am here learning and happy to be here. The support thing is something that is so underserved in the industry. People don't even, when I first entered, I didn't know where to go. I had no idea. I couldn't even find news outlets. So I would love to hear about the future of H2O crypto. How far are you able to see, and explain a little bit how you plan to get there?
So I will absolutely address that. If you don't mind, I want to do another quick, another plug on the company.
Please,
Because
please.
the whole notion is, you're right. I think that client support is non-existent in Web3, and it's really across all businesses in Web3. It's not endemic to exchanges. I personally find it unconscionable when it comes to exchanges because it's people's money. And we don't allow that with our banks. We don't allow that with our brokerage firms. So why do we allow that with our cryptocurrency exchanges? Well, there's no other choice. And the whole thing started was when I first got into crypto, I had no idea what I was doing. That seems to be a problem with a guy with my experience. I'm not a smart guy, fine, but I did used to sell derivatives to central banks, so I'm pretty good with markets. I know how to set up accounts. And our initial differentiating point is the 24/7, 365 live support. The other thing that makes us even more unique almost is we are a non-custodial centralized exchange. So get your mind around that. We actually don't take possession of our clients' capital, whether it's crypto or fiat. We partner with a U.S. chartered trust company, and all of our client assets go to that U.S. chartered trust company. So we are literally FTX proof. I hate to take it, but that is true. We are FTX proof. The third thing is, and this is where the name comes from, even though we're a new exchange and a startup, we have some of the deepest liquidity and tightest spreads in the market. So the H2O obviously represents water, water's liquidity. And that's something we're very, very proud of. We're pointing to about 30 different global liquidity providers around the world. And that's what makes our liquidity book so important and so really, again, deep and liquid. And lastly, our C-suite. We have over 50 years of aggregate experience between me and my TradFi and our CIO. has about 20 plus years in tech and tech security. Okay, now getting to your question, I apologize.
No. That's important context because that's exactly where this needs to go. Thank you.
We firmly believe, and now it's absolutely exploding, that the tokenization of all real world assets is coming. I mean, there's zero doubt in our mind about that. And I think what equity owners, equity investors, they don't realize how it unlocks liquidity in projects and assets that otherwise you would have to sell the whole thing. So take the Empire State Building in New York. The owner of that building can't sell floors 47 through 51. He or she can only sell the whole building. With tokenization, you can do that. You can have fractional ownership, fractional sales, and all of that is coming. There's zero doubt in my mind. Now, when it does come, it's going to need a place to be traded where people can invest. They can buy and sell and purchase. And so we look at H2 Crypto as trying to break down the incredibly fragmented space of investing in Web3. You know, right now you go to an exchange to kind of be the fiat on and off ramp and buy and sell crypto, and maybe you DeFi over here, you borrow and lend over there. And over time, we see it collapsing and coming together. Just like in TradFi, most people don't have a checking account at one place, a saving account at another, a bond at another, a stock at another, mutual fund. They want to keep it as much as they can. And so with Web3 and tokenized assets, we want to be known as a trustworthy and trusted exchange that has a infrastructure that's very unique, again, safeguarding client assets. And that to me is where we would like to see H2 Crypto go. A lot of our competitors have decided to throw in traditional type assets. So they're doing equities, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if maybe they started offering the Bitcoin ETF and other crypto ETFs that are coming down the pipe. We don't want to do that. We want to stay true to Web3 and be really known as a Web3 centric exchange.
Absolutely. I feel like your experience, you said your C-suite, everybody is quite experienced in traditional finance. And I think that it's so important from a visionary perspective, because when you're looking at your exchange, it's like, it's not just this one thing. It's not about digital currency. It's about more, and kind of things that are carried over from traditional finance, that type of thinking. It's really cool. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's so hard for us to envision and imagine what's going to happen. And going back to what we were speaking a few minutes ago about the internet, the early days, people just discounted it. And think about our lives today without the internet. Think about it. It's almost impossible. Like, it's impossible to even imagine that. And I think crypto and Web3 and blockchain, especially blockchain, it's going to be so steeped and endemic in all of our lives. You know, I look at things like our passports, our driver's license, our health records, our birth certificates, all that stuff is going to be digitized. There's zero doubt in my mind. Yeah. And then again, going to certain industries, from, you know, there's certain things in law and real estate where they're still going down to the county courthouse like it's 1825. All of that stuff is going to be digitized. And so, you know, where's it going to be housed? Are some of these things going to be tradable? I mean, things that we can't even begin to imagine today are going to be there. And again, they're going to need a centralized, trustworthy location to access it.
Absolutely. There's so many things I do want to say. I'm very fascinated by mass adoption, and how people are going to get general population on board with the understanding. Because I remember the first time I tried to learn about how a blockchain worked, and I think it took me an hour and a half of reading the same paragraph, and I was just going.
Well, you're actually a fast learner, because it took me a heck of a lot longer than that. So let's touch on that for a second.
Yeah.
I think that it's very misunderstood. Web3 maybe or may not understand this, but virtually no one is involved in Web3. And when you're talking about crypto ownership, you're talking about a finite cottage industry, 300 or 400 million out of 8 billion people. Yeah. And what we were just discussing, the single largest pain point preventing broad and mass adoption is its sheer complexity. People do not understand it. And so they need a bit of a helping hand. But what's interesting is I don't think they need to be technology or blockchain or crypto experts. And I'll give you a really quick example.
Yeah.
When I come across people and they find out what I do for a living and they say, I just don't understand it, so I'm not involved. I said, look, I get that. You shouldn't be involved if you don't understand it.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. are you speaking to me on a mobile phone? Yes, I am. Well, can you tell me how the internet workings of your mobile phone work? And by the way, when you go to work every day, do you get in a combustible engine or electronic engine car? And whatever they say, I say, well, tell me how that works. And every time you run your credit card and the interchange works and the back end on the banking, how does that work? When you write a check, tell me. So the reality is, for the most part, none of us have any idea how the majority of things we use in life work. Then why do we use them? We use them because they're broadly and massively adopted. Everybody else has used it. So it's kind of like an acceptance model.
Yep.
What I think is going to happen is I think that this Bitcoin ETF and its other ETFs fall in and institutional adoption becomes more apparent. Yep. That's going to be effectuated by U.S. governmental regulatory clarity. That's when we're going to start to see a lot of adoption. Yeah. So I don't think people are going to necessarily sit down and read books on blockchain or cryptography. Right. But once it becomes everybody ubiquitous, which it will become, I think that's when you're starting to see mass and broad adoption.
Couldn't agree more. I just saw the same example of you listen to music, but do you know what an MP3 audio is? It's like, you know, exactly. It's same exact. It's fascinating to me. I love the case studies on it. George, I love talking about blockchain, crypto, Web3. We are going to transition to the end of the interview. Keep it short and sweet. Any last words on H2cryptO blockchain?
I would just say that, again, it's certainly not too late to be involved in blockchain and crypto. I think if I could draw a sporting analogy, we're still in the batting practice before the first pitch of the first inning has even started, and it's never too late. If you don't understand it, we highly encourage you to start doing some research online, and that's what H2cryptO is here for. You can call us, you can chat us, you can email, you can drop a support ticket. We're here to hold people's hands. So anything we can do to help our clients, we're here.
Beautiful. The client-centric, people will appreciate it. I'm sure, and I know they already do. I signed up for H2cryptO. It's a wonderful interface.
Awesome.
Plan on calling soon.
Thank you.
All right, George, last two questions here. Just I'd like to, I love these things, knowing. So first of all, what's your favorite book?
My favorite book? That's a tough one, Lindsay. That's like asking me my favorite song or favorite movie. I have so many. My favorite book, I would say one that was really impressionable for me. I'm going to kind of cheat. I'm going to give an old one and a current one.
No cheating.
I think The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. I think most of us read that in high school, probably, if you're in the United States. Yeah. And I think it just made a really big impression on me. And I think that the notion is struggle and overcoming struggle. And throughout our daily lives, we all think we have struggles, but yet when we think about, going back then or current strife around the world currently today, whatever struggles we have in our daily lives pretty much pale in comparison to how it could be. Mm-hmm. And it was very impressionable teacher that we read the book with, and just left a really lasting impression on me. Currently, I recently read a book called Tracers in the Dark, which is ultimately about blockchain and the takedown of Silk Road. It is an absolutely beyond phenomenal book. It's like a fine wine. You don't want to read the next page because it's so good. So that's an excellent, excellent book.
Oh, well, actually, I loved your answer. Maybe I should change my question to old book and new book, because I think that's fantastic.
Again, it's like asking me my favorite song or movie. It's like I have thousands of them. It's so hard to pick just one. So
it's fair. There's no wrong answer, and it changes by the day too. That's also okay. And last question here, George. What is the nicest thing that anybody has ever done for you?
The nicest thing that anybody has ever done for me? That's also a difficult question. I think I would harken back. So this is a little bit of a story, but I'll be short.
Please, no.
When I was at the University of Georgia 100 years ago, in order to graduate, although I ended up transferring, you had to take a music history class. That was mandatory. And I took this class, and the professor was probably in his mid to late 50s. And the first test, I don't even know if I studied or not, but I failed, just totally bombed it. The next test came, and I had done a lot of studying. Mm-hmm. And when the test came, he kind of changed the order of how the music was played. It's usually like the start or the finish, and he would jump to the middle and jump around. And so I felt like I'd done really poorly on the test. And so on the back of my exam, I just wrote a scathing review. Like, we're here to learn and not to be tricked and fooled with, like, how, and When it came time to get our results back, he read that to the class, and he didn't say who it was, and he came and like slammed it on my paper or on my desk table.
Oh my God.
I go to the head of the music department and I tell him the story, and I said, "This is a joke. I'm outraged. I can't believe he would humiliate me and embarrass." He's like, "Well, we've had a lot of problems with this professor, and we're going to look into that, and this isn't the end of that." So one day the professor called me after class. He said, "Can I speak with you?" And I said, "Yes, sir, you can." And so he started telling me his struggles, actually. How crazy is this? I didn't think about this in Grapes Around, and what was going on in his life and these things. And it made me feel about that big.
Wow.
I went back to the head of the music department and I said, "Look, my mea culpa, my bad. I didn't realize this gentleman was having issues in his life and his family and his wife, da, da, da." And I kind of recant and I apologize. And he said, "Look, it takes a big, big man to do that, and we appreciate that." And the rest of the semester, I think I either made C's, D's, or F's on every single exam. It was just terrible. When my report card came in the mail, I had an A. And so I've told this story to my children many, many times, because the reality is you really never know what's going on with people. And more often than not, when you're nice to people, you're going to receive that back to you. When you're ugly to people, more often than not, you're going to receive that back to you too. Mm-hmm. And it was a valuable lesson to me in that we had this kind of cantankerous, catty relationship until we kind of both understood where we were coming from. And I think the gratitude, I never saw him or spoke to him again, but I certainly did not deserve an A, but he did what he did. And that, again, was something very, very impressionable on me.
What I love most about the story, I think, is that is a pure human interaction lesson of life. There's nothing monetary or physical or tangible about that. Yes, maybe an A did help you graduate, but that's a people lesson, and that goes anywhere, no matter what industry you're in. That's
so kids at home listening. We're not advocating you argue with your professors.
No, definitely not.
But that was no, you're right. It was like, it's a great human interest story, no doubt.
That is huge disclaimer at the bottom. That is a wonderful story, though. It really is. I appreciate that a lot.
Absolutely,
George. Thank you so much. I have appreciated your time today. I'm sure you are very busy. Get back to your 24/7 customer support. I know they always are calling. So thank you. I'm very lucky to have you on for the first episode, and this will be posted on Friday, April 5th. And yeah, I'm feeling very grateful. Thank you for being here.
Lindsay, it was my pleasure. It was awesome. You're a great host, and thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, George. Have a wonderful Thursday. And good luck with everything. We'll be in touch. Everybody out there, you can follow George on LinkedIn, and you can also follow H2cryptO. It was very easy to sign up on the website. I will link the website right in the description of my audio video here. So thank you, George.
Cheers, Lindsay. Take care.
Good luck. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.